前らは日本語を勉強しますか? どうして? I am Carl. This is my Lingo Kingdom where I talk about learning the languages of the Isles, Gaelic, Cymraeg, and Nihongo, Japanese. In this video, I'm going to show you how I am currently learning Japanese, as well as give you a taste of just a little bit of what I've learned and how you can apply this to your own language learning journey, especially if you're learning Japanese. おはようございます。はじめまして。よろしくお願いします。俺はカルです。仕事は Experience Strategist です。アメリカ人です。Charlotte, North Carolina 出身です。合気道と剣術とチャンバラ好きです。日本語を勉強します。でも、俺の日本語がまずいです。上手ではない。楽しいですか？漢字は難しいです。コーヒー欲しいです。待ってください。行きましょう。So, for learning Japanese, I like to break up what I do into both active immersion or active learning and passive immersion. So I take these, the active immersion and the passive immersion, and I try to do those at least 5 days a week during the weekdays. Because on the weekends, I'm doing my Celtic languages, which I've got videos for on my channel here as well. Doing Welsh and Gaelic on the weekends, and Japanese during the weekdays. And I also try to do this during at least 1 hour a day, not counting, the passive immersion. I'm not counting that. I'm saying at least 1 hour of active immersion, which I actually have a slot blocked off on my work calendar where I can work on that. Now, I don't always get to put in that much time every day, but that's really the goal. Along with the active immersion that I talked about during my work day, that also does not count when I have a coffee break or in between meetings or something, and I get to do some Duolingo or some Mango or something like that. Or sometimes I'll do Duolingo before bed, that kind of thing. So that is how I kind of break things up during the day, and now I'll walk you through the passive immersion and then the active immersion that I do in order to learn Japanese. Now, for my passive immersion, I watch anime, as most of you probably do if you're learning Japanese. Or if you're learning another language, you're probably watching TV and movies in that language, and that is great. Watching this type of media is usually not going to be an active learning. It's usually just going to be passive immersion, which is still good, but it's not as good as you might think it is. So don't fool yourself into thinking you'll become fluent in a year or two simply by watching anime with English subtitles. It doesn't really work that way. My wife and I love to watch anime together. She's much more of an anime expert than I am. I also like to watch Japanese movies, especially chambara, like the Japanese, like the samurai movies. I love those. And music as well. I especially like to listen to Japanese worship music. And the reason why that's helpful more than other types of music is because there's usually subtitles. And by subtitles, I mean they put the kana, the kanji, and even romaji. They don't always put English, but they usually put romaji. And a lot of the songs were originally written in English, and so I already know the tune, and I already know some of the words, and it's just it makes it easier for me to memorize the language and kind of immerse in it because I already know what's being said in a lot of cases. And I'll leave some links down in the description for some channels that I really recommend for that, if that's your thing. Active immersion or active learning, that's the stuff where I'm not doing anything else except working on my Japanese. And so this is composed of reading books, which I want to do, but I'm not quite good enough to do yet. And so very soon I'm going to start with some beginner, like N5 level manga. So if you want to know which manga I'm going to start with, stick around to the end of the video and I'll reveal it. Of course, the first thing I started with when my wife and I started learning Japanese together over a year ago was Duolingo. Now, I know Duolingo gets a lot of bad press, and most people have tried it. Some of you like it, some of you don't like it. Obviously, Duolingo alone ain't gonna make you fluent in any language, okay? I'm not saying that it is. But it is a very good resource for me, especially by keeping me in kind of the mindset of being a language learner. And it is something that forces me to actively learn, every day. The next thing that I really like that not a lot of people know about is an app called Mango. Mango is really cool because it's kind of a different style than Duolingo. It's not gamified like Duolingo is. Mango is a lot more focused on being able to speak in the way that it's got these kind of predetermined lessons that get you kind of conversational very early on. So even if you didn't want to become, completely fluent in Japanese, even if you just wanted to know a little bit of basic Japanese for like a vacation or something, this would help you get there real quickly. And so I like getting to use Mango in addition to the other resources because it focuses so much on a different side of the language than Duolingo does, which focuses a lot on kind of the grammar. I also have used a lot of other Japanese apps. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do a video about kind of all of the apps out there that I've used and which ones I think are the best for learning Japanese. I do like the app called Drops. That's not only is it wonderfully designed, because my day job is in UX, like I said, it's from a UX perspective, it's a really great app, it's fun to use. And it focuses so much just on vocabulary, especially because you can pick different vocabulary like categories. I just want to do food today, or I just want to do computer stuff today. That's really cool. The one that I was actually the most surprised about, that was the most helpful, is the Japanese dictionary app. You'd think if you're learning a language, the boring way to do it is to look things up in the dictionary, and you'd kind of be right, but I don't actually look stuff up in the dictionary very often. Actually, what I'm doing is this particular app has a flashcard system built in, and it uses SRS, spaced repetition, which is so great because I know everybody on Reddit and YouTube is obsessed with Anki and making Anki cards and using Anki for Japanese, but I'm sorry, I hate Anki. But the Japanese dictionary app has exactly what I want. It's got the spaced repetition, flashcards. It looks so much better than Anki. It's so much easier to use, and I don't have to make the cards because all of the cards are in the dictionary. Like, come on. Now I know the people who love Anki will say, oh, well, part of the process is making the cards yourself, and that itself is a learning activity, and I agree with you. That's just not working for me. So if that works for you, then keep doing it, All of these different apps give me different things, okay? Duolingo helps me keep a steady habit because I have to do it every day to keep up my streak and stuff. It helps me remain in the mindset of being a Japanese language learner. I'm like always, I'm learning languages. That's what I'm doing. And it helps me a lot with grammar. Mango helps me speak and gives me phrases that I can use instantly. So if I get in a conversation with somebody, I know how to introduce myself. I know how to talk about the weather. When I met some coworkers from Japan who came to visit our office a couple months ago, I was able to use things that I learned from Mango. Was I able to use stuff that I learned from Duolingo? No, most of the stuff was from Mango. But that doesn't mean Mango is like better than Duolingo and Duolingo is awful. It's just they're different. And same thing with the dictionary app. That I'm using to help build my vocabulary, and it helps me with the spaced repetition and just building up new words and learning all of the kanji for those different things. Another thing that is real big, in addition to using these apps, that I do for my active learning is just memorization. I know people don't like that word, but if you're gonna learn another language, you just have to memorize stuff, especially just to build up the ability to understand stuff and be able to use new words. You have to memorize stuff. You just have to focus on learning more words. So one of the things that I use for that is this big set of vocabulary words. This is a top 1,000 list made by a guy called Brit versus Japan. It's not Matt versus Japan, it's a different guy. And I'll leave a link for this in the description so you can download this, totally free. And it's got all these different words, and I really like it because it not only has the kanji in the English, but it's also got romaji, it's got kana, it's got them kind of broken up into different categories: society, weights and measures, directions and positions, weather, weekdays. So if you want like a comprehensive list, this is a really good one. I'm trying to go through and write a lot of those down and take notes on it so I can help memorize, all this kind of stuff. And as promised, I'm not going to reveal the beginning level of manga that I'm going to start reading soon. All right, and it is Yotsubato. So I can even kind of read some of the cover, and it's very kind of a simple, like I said, level. If you want to get a copy of this in Japanese so that you can read along, then I've got a link for that down in the description below. The other memorization thing that I really like that's been even more helpful because it's so much more concise is this. It is the Golden 100. It is like the top 100 words in Japanese that you need to know in order to kind of jumpstart your fluency. And this is part of Ollie Richards' course called Japanese Uncovered. Now, Ollie Richards is a famous YouTuber. He's got a bunch of courses in all these languages that he's learned, including Japanese. He's lived in Japan. I bought this course and I'm so happy with it. I'm not even done with it yet, and I definitely want to recommend it to you. And one of the reasons for that is because he teaches you how to speak and read Japanese through the power of story. If you're afraid of kanji and you think, oh no, if it's going to be through storytelling, then I'm going to have to learn all this kanji in order to read the story. But it's like, no, don't worry, because Ollie, and his co-teacher, who is a native speaker from Japan, they kind of start out with romaji so that you can begin to experience stories in Japanese and begin to have that active immersion without even having to know hiragana or katakana or kanji. And so they kind of build up to that later on. And you also learn about the culture so that when you finally do get to go to Japan, you'll not only be able to speak, but you'll understand the customs that go along with it. Japanese Uncovered to me is so much more efficient and enjoyable than a lot of the other resources that are out there. And so I highly recommend Ollie's course. So if you want to get it and learn Japanese alongside me, then I've got a link for you down in the description below. Smash that like button if you enjoyed laughing at my broken Japanese, and if you're further along than me in your Japanese studies, then please correct my grammar or pronunciation or whatever down in the comments, especially if you are a native speaker. Onegaishimasu. If you want to learn more about all of the other books that I'm using to help myself and my wife learn Japanese, then you can watch that video right here.